lay the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today with actionable intelligence. So for some of you, you're aware of who we are, and thanks for joining another webinar series for us. Those of you who aren't familiar with us, Diversified is a global provider of audiovisual, digital signage, broadcast, and IT security-related technologies and services. We address the needs of visualization in so many spaces, the boardroom, the conference room, the mission-critical environment, public safety, public venues, etc. And we are headquartered out of Kenilworth, New Jersey. Kevin's company is SitScape. SitScape is a software-related company that specializes in what I would best define as how you take vast amounts of data and information, no matter what it is, where it is, or in what format it is, and allows you to aggregate that information into a usable format that can then be turned into dashboards, analytics, correlation, machine learning, a whole host of other features that a lot of businesses today in the mission-critical environment are wanting as productivity tools. And so Kevin will speak to what actionable intelligence is and how actionable intelligence can be used in a variety of applications within the mission-critical world, whether you're a power utility or a security operations center or a network operations center. Everybody that we talk to out there is looking for ways to automate processes and eliminate a lot of the human error that is associated with these centers and increase their efficiencies and reduce their response times to events. So kind of with that said, I'll turn this over to Kevin, and then Kevin, if you want, you can just kind of take it from there and take it away. Absolutely.
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. So I'm flipping my screens here just to make sure you guys follow. So the communication is happening here. All right, I assume you can hear me okay. So I'm Kevin Yin. As Robert said, what I'm going to do today is introduce 7 best practices of actionable operation intelligence, mostly in the operation center environment. This is a very broad topic. So today, I primarily focus on the in the operation center environment here. So the 7 best practices I would like to talk about is listed on the right-hand side here. The first is all about the data, and the second is from the display to insight. The third is to keep the analytics simple, and the number 4 is reduce false positive. Number 5, automation is your friend, and the number 6, leveraging advanced analytics, and the number 7 is empower the users. With that said, you have this diagram I have been showing here is a little bit about all the way translating from the data source and through a analytical processes to intelligence, and make the intelligence actionable, make them visible, and then make them tied into the actual operation environment. So this is actually a fair amount of sense going on here to translate from the data to the actions. And I'm going to walk you guys through the 7 best practices one by one, and in the next 20 minutes or so. So that goes through the first one. It's all about the data. So if you look what I have here, typically there's a very standard way of processes of translating the data from the operation environment into some sort of visibility or views, and allow either human to make a decision or have the machine to take a action based on the decision making recommended by the analytics. That involving a lot of steps. And so the sense to consider is how do you aggregate at the bare minimum. I'm looking from the operations center perspective, so not necessarily purely from a data analyst or data scientist perspective. Even though an aggregated view of multiple displays is not really considered a analytics, but it's actually useful as a step 1 is to be able to aggregate different panels of displays and to be able to aggregate views from disparate application together. So it's actually a good start do not get me wrong, it's not, it's not a bad idea. If you can actually bring different applications, even just in a bigger monitor, it actually works pretty well as a step one. And there's a lot of best practice of doing that, and the hardware-based, the software-based, and I would recommend using a software-based strategy to do that. And not only be able to aggregate computer views, and if you can aggregate relevant application windows together and store them in a virtualized fashion, so you can bring up, for example, an operational view for 5 systems or in 3 networks in a big monitor. That helps a lot. But that's obviously not enough if we talk about actionable intelligence, but I think that will be based on some of us are already doing this, and some of us are still moving to that direction. The pixels we show on the screen is not just, not enough. Unfortunately, is to make a actionable intelligence at work, you have to understand that the analytic flow, I just talked about it, and understand where the data sources are, what the format they are, and how to transform the data, and the correlating the data. And there's actually a process of doing that. The good news is in many cases, you don't have to do everything yourself. You can buy tools, maybe significantly reduce the effort to make that happen for you, and I'll show you some of the later. There's actually a big difference between report and analytics. Sometimes people don't really differentiate those two. And reports is really about just generating some information about what happened. Analytics actually allow you to ask a question about why and be able to dig into the correlations and gain insights that's beyond just generating some reports. Nevertheless, they are all very important, and it's all about data. And the visualization is critical. And without the visualization, humans will not be able to see what's going on. And generally speaking, it was hard for people to make a decision if they cannot see it, right? So it's like, okay, if you cannot see it, you cannot make a decision. If you cannot track it, you cannot manage it. And being able to see something, it helps humans to make a decision. But on the other hand, there are advanced cases, which I'll talk about later, is using advanced analytics and automation to treat actions that humans don't have to always be in the loop. You can be, but there are ways to reduce the amount of effort human has to be involved with automation and advanced analytics. But in summary, I think I understand the data is important, and there's actually a lot of new practices, new knowledges. Each of us all need to know. This is a very fast-changing area here. I want to move a little bit beyond to say, hey, just talk about data is, because everyone has seen big monitor. We have seen in the command center, we have a video wars and display a lot of stuff there. But unfortunately, I believe most of the cases, the video wall was only used to display something for more marketing purposes sometimes, or maybe just simply display a couple of screens from different applications or weathers or whatever. Sometimes I've seen people put a UCNA in the command center. They have not taken advantage, the real data intelligence yet. So I would recommend to move from the display on a screen with the pixels to more of a focus on what's happening, what's changing, and then what's trend. So it's more than just display some fancy charts. And the important to highlight is the pixels and the real estate you have to understand what's really happening, why that's happening, and what's the changing happening. And to make that happen, we have to be able to establish the baseline of what is the normal and what is the abnormal. If we don't know that, it's hard to know where you should spend your time on. And from the visualization perspective, ideally there's ways to highlighting what's going abnormal, right? Maybe using a heat map, maybe using a trend line, using a red color, yellow, keep it simple, but able to highlighting what's exactly happening and pay attention to. Be able to generate alerts, send the messages to the users. I mean, this sounds pretty simple. It's actually not hard, not that easy to do because there's too much information. So being able to aggregate information from different places and the measure the key performance indicator, and based on multiple data sources, it still takes a lot of practices and knowledge and experience to do that. But the key here is to be able to understand normal and abnormal, and to be able to show that on the screen. That's actually pinpoint, and to be able to allow to do the drill down, which is can be more than one layer drill down. You can drill down from the house level. If you see a bubble, says, for example, the server is down, or there's some, there's maybe security risk, and if you can click on the button, and you'll be able to pinpoint what happened, or why does it happen. For example, because it's because of the CPU, it's memory, or it's because too many attacks to your IP address, and where they come from, you can drill down. And make it very simple, because this is really for the operators and not necessarily analysts. One click away to be able to drill down, and one click away to see more information related, even though underlying there may be multiple data sources. Make it very easy for the end user to do that. It's really, really important. So make it visual, make it quick, make it visible, and they be able to show up normal and to be able to drill down. It's pretty important. And for some of the power users, you might want to learn how to do what I call interactive data discovery. It's more of in the mind of an analyst to do more of a root cause analysis, do a what if, and to be able to drill down using time, locations, and IP address, and using a link graph to understand the dependencies. If you do that, you have a much better understanding. This is really for the more power users who understand analytics and a better understanding of the entropy dependency. But for the average operator, be able to one click away to see something and to be able to understand what's going on and then take a human action is very, very important. And so the simplicity, right, based on the insight. And I'm going to move to the next one. Hey, that sounds pretty complicated stuff there, right? My recommendation is not really use a lot of advanced analytics. You really don't need to have a master's degree or PhD in statistics and mathematics for doing this. And a lot of the work I have seen is in the operation environment really does not have involving a lot of really advanced math. Understand the basics of counting numbers and doing some averages. It works pretty well. And if you really want to understand a bit more statistics, have some basic understanding of standard deviation, it works in the operation environment. And the key here is be able to gather the data and apply the simple math across a timeline, across a specific system, applies a specific environment, and to be able to do that consistently, you will establish the baseline, talk about it, and with that said, you will be able to see where something's not going well. And if we don't have that, and it's pretty hard to know why there's exception, right? And I think that's really important to understand. While there's a lot of people talk about the machine learning and artificial intelligence, I'm just thinking about it from a DIY perspective. You don't really need to know a lot about the advanced machine learning models and even linear algebra type of stuff. And just be able to do this basic stuff, apply to the data, you will be amazed how much you can accomplish. And as far as you can get the data and apply this as a practice, and really doesn't need a lot of fancy statistics to do that. And the return on the investment is pretty high. So I would not even recommend to actually really to learn, advanced math before you can apply this. Apply the basics will work. The challenge is how do you make this plug and play, because really the stuff will change and the requirement change, the data change. Ideally is when you design this, you want to allow the changes happen and to be able to plug and play your math into that without breaking the rest of the system. I think that's more important, than any using too advanced mathematics or stats. And obviously, it's the advanced analytics has its place. That's one of my talking points later. But for now, focus on the basics. Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple is very important. Yeah. This is the next one is reduce the false positive. This is actually happened so many times. I have seen is in the op center, people see the pop-ups and the alerts come off the screens, and all the time. Like if you see like 100 of them in an hour, you don't really care about them because it just doesn't mean anything to you anymore. The reason is because this kind of alerts are based on a single data point. They say, okay, if this average is more than 10 times or whatever, I just pop. But that's sometimes not a problem. The problem really is because you have to look at the high-level picture and to be able to understand all those factors. So let's think about this, right? If you have a system that is actually doing really well or not doing well, maybe depend on many, many factors. It's not just one single factor. If one factor is not working, it's not really a big deal sometimes. So if you got all those alerts for all those stuff, that's why you got all those false positives. So the most important thing is to be able to aggregating the data together and then correlating them in a way that you don't have to generate all those alerts. So the number of alerts will be drastically reduced if you are able to correlate and aggregate the data together and then come up with more of a holistic, high-level KPI for that. This requires some understanding of the data, but that's actually a effective way to make the learning more relevant and more accurate, and the operators will be more responsive to this kind of learning. Otherwise, as I said, there's just way too many of them to get used to it, and they just turn it off. Doesn't mean anything. Another best practice of doing this is understand, for example, if you say, hey, I have a KPI number. If I think if this average number of hits or number of IP accessed or packets is more than 500 per second, that's normal. That's usually not enough. The reason is because you have to introduce a lot of other factors. For example, is this the Sunday or is this the Monday, right? I'll just give you an example. Is it in the morning or is it in the afternoon? It changes. This is just one example of time window. So if you can come up with find out the normal number specifically for that hour, you have one more dimension. But the concept can be applied to say, is this actually for 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and for the network traffic from this subnet of network and with mobile devices. This will basically be more specific to come up what's normal. And that takes some calculation to do that, but it's not too hard to do. If we do this, then you'll be able to pinpoint it only if this happens. On average, it's become a problem. It doesn't mean it's a problem for this hour, right? So vice versa. So this is what I call a fine-grained normal. Understand the normal and have accuracy and understanding of that based on the data, and this is dynamic. And then be able to apply that into more broader cases. This is actually a proven technique you can use. This is come up with this kind of calculation on the background, and the mathematics will kick in. And as an operator, you really don't need to see all these calculations. And when the moment you got the positive, it's most likely right because all the math has been done in the background for you, right? Okay, so the next one. The next one I'd like to talk about is automation. I think I cannot emphasize the importance of automation. With so much data going on, with a lot of systems, a lot of data, and a lot of people and processes, we all work too hard. Yes, there's too much demand for our time, and automation is really our friend and make that happen. A lot of things are repeating. We basically things has to get the data. You have to transform the data. You have to log into a system. You copy paste the data from one system to another. Put it in a more spreadsheet, and then run a simple mathematics or whatever. I mean, a lot of the stuff are very repetitive. So automation can help a lot. Automation is not easy because you tied into different systems, so you understand how to get into that. The good news is that there's newer technology allow you to be able to mimic what a human does and to be able to do this and tie them together. Second is, designing of automation becomes easier with the graphic tool. Just think about a business process automation tool, right? There's a graphic way to do that. Even from the display perspective, think about a big display, a video wall. If there's a way to automate it, hey, I want to display all those 20 servers information quickly, can actually make that happen very quick instead of using hardware switch. I have to connect to 20 different computers and switch them. It's hard. If you can store them in a configuration, virtualize the display, and the one click away, now all the view relate to your servers or relate to your utilities or whatever, it becomes display. Now, is it cybersecurity or is actually utilities or banking, financial services, military, doesn't matter. If you can define this kind of views up front and automating them, and they will, on demand, you can display them. From a display perspective, the same idea applies to analytics. It's not only the analytics, but also the process of analytics can be automated. and to achieve the actions and the command and control based on data. There's a lot of technique stuff and the process and technology doing that now, and my work to invest a little bit of time to research about that part, and we're open to discuss with you guys if you're interested about some of the best practice beyond that. Because today, with a limited time, we'll not be able to get into too much details here. But nevertheless, humans still in the loop. So this does not mean machine does everything, right? The automation helps you to get rid of a lot of the repetitive stuff. But if the analytics recommending an action and that requires human approval, a review, I think it still makes sense. Sometimes the machine will analyze something, and then all you need to do is actually generating a ticket, and automatically insert into a ticketing system. And the process of ticket itself may be managed by workflow in your enterprise, such as like a Remedy or whatever. In this case, it's not an end-to-end automation, but it's actually a automation from the discovery perspective, and then have a human in the loop to make the rest of the ticket handling processes. So this is actually something I would recommend to sort of understand the relationships about the human and computer collaboration, and when do you handle the responsibility to the computer, and when do you have the computer to generating recommendations and analysis that have a human to do that. As this getting better and better, I think the human can reduce the more effort to have the machine and computer to do that. And the longer this can scale if you all do by neighbor, right? This, automation ideally be done by machine, specifically by the software. A lot of the software tools out there right now start to emerging, focus on the end-to-end automation and the orchestration. So this is something getting a very much attention to in the industry. So there's a significant amount of the work I have seen working with some of the Fortune 500 customers. They call robotic kings, and doing that, it's more of a software-based data automation. There's various of tools to help you to do that, and it's getting better. So we talk about automation, and we talk about keep it simple, right? The reality is over the last 5 years or so, there's a significant amount of advancement in advanced analytics, specifically in machine learning. And the machine learning is nothing new. People have been talking about machine learning for years. But what's happening is over the last 5 years or so, there's a renewed interest about specifically machine learning with neural networks and with especially the deep layers of neural networks. How do you do using that to do predictive analytics? There's a breakthrough over the last couple of years. There's a significant amount of work going on right now that's being pushed by Google, Microsoft, and many, many others. And there's a huge amount of investment into this space right now. The concept is how do you do model-based analytics to train the data, using data to train the model, and then apply the model in the operation environment. And this is start to get into use cases such as predictive analytics and faster way to recognizing patterns in videos, images. Think about in the battle space, or you have UAVs. You want to know what's going on in the traffic cameras, in the highway. You want to recognize something going on with the car. And this machine learning turns out to be, especially the deep learning, turns out to be very good at this kind of stuff. That's not a traditional rule-based programming. It's more of a pattern recognition. That's model-based. And it's probably worthwhile to invest some time to read about this stuff. And even you don't have to write this code for the advanced analytics or machine learning, there are tools out there now start emerging that allow you to do low coding based machine learning prediction and be able to even do drag and drop to generating predictive analytics. And even better, some of them start to be able to explain what's happening. Because the challenge with deep learning is you want to recommend something, it doesn't tell you why. And I think the explainable AI is starting emerging, and self-service, no coding, start to emerging as well. This is a very hot area right now, and there's a lot of activities going on and a lot of investment go to this. From an operational, intelligence perspective, how that relate to me if I'm an operator, right? How do I make a decision? How do I get decision making with this technology? Is you don't have to learn all the details, but if you find a technology platform that allows you to plug advanced analytics into your decision point and still be part of the automation, and instead of using a traditional way of doing that and then using this, they may be a better at accuracy and more power of doing in the way you used to do, and it doesn't drastically change the automation process. So I would not consider say analytics or advanced analytics competing with automation or what you do today, but more of augmentation and a complementary. And learning some of those stuff and plug into what you do today will help you to make the current automation or decision making smarter. And there's a very good chance some of the use cases may be applied, especially in some of the pattern recognition type of use cases. It's really, really useful. And in some of the cyber, for example, the threat detections and anti-fraud, this turns out to be very, very helpful. The key here is not only understand this, but we need to think about this. Ideally, if you're not an analyst, just from an operator perspective, is you need to think it sometimes as a modular. So be able to plug and play this into your operational processes, make them less decoupled, make them less coupled, and be able to piloting this to see if that really make the decision better and without breaking your current processes. It's emerging areas, a lot of excitement going on here, and I would not recommend immediately get into this. It depends on your maturity. If your maturity is still at the early stages, I think just apply some simple math and stats will work. If your maturity curve is fairly advanced, you have invested a lot into this, you have the internal expertise, like this to understand some of this, and this is a great area to invest in, and it will get a good return on investment. The final point I would like to talk about is basically empower the user. Remember, the focus today is here, very much focused on in the ops center, operation environment. So my focus today is not about analyst or data scientist and stuff. So that's why I didn't talk too much about the mathematics and stuff like that. And it's really focused on the operation environment. And the audience and the users are not, generally speaking, not that kind of technical or computer scientist or programmer. They're more of operator. They need to make things happen. There's a lot of things going on. And in this kind of environment, I think the empower user means a couple of things. Okay. The first thing is you want to make sure the end user can see what they are interested in, and which means ideally you will have a way to allow them to tap into anything they want to see, and they be able to define what they want to see. And I don't think we should underestimate that. It's because that become a user-driven, user-centric. So if they always want to see something different than somebody else, we should providing the mechanism and the technology or software help them to do that, make it self-service. I'm just looking from a view perspective. You can see this gentleman sitting in front of this. He should be able to tap into any information from any source, either internal or external, right? Even inside of internal, some large organization, you have a couple hundred applications and 1,000 screens. And how do you make them to do that? It's if we can make that happen, which I call user-defined, it's very, very helpful. And as a end user, as an operator, and for more of the advanced operators, they might want to do analytics, right? So which means they know how to connect in some data sources. They have a way to access databases or export data to Excel spreadsheet, or maybe they understand what is a REST API or call is, and then providing a tool allows them to plug in their own logic and the processes, make them a Lego style, mix and match different data and transform the data together and apply some mathematics. It doesn't have to be too advanced or plug in advanced analytics in a plug and play fashion. It's really, it's still very, it's going to be very helpful. The point here is out of box, there may be providing a lot of templating systems, applications, so this can use. But the reality is because every system and environment and they're so different, the industry is different, right? We talk about cybersecurity, physical security, customer care, utility centers. I mean, they're all different. So there's really no one-size-fits-all solution here. But if you have this kind of easy-to-use environment and to empower the user to do that, they will be able to tailor to whatever they want. Just think about a PowerPoint. In a PowerPoint, it's basically allow you to do whatever you want, right? It's not like, just have some templates. Most of us don't create the best, beautiful PowerPoint, but get a job done. Enable you. You don't have to ask somebody else to do that. The same idea apply to this kind of intelligence analytic is if we can provide that mechanism to on the multiple layers, from the display layer, from the data visualization layer, from the automation, or from the data analytics, if we can give them the power they want it based on their maturity, the skill set, the time to have, and we can meeting the users' demand way better. For example, if you are senior leader, you probably don't really want to mess around too much stuff. So you want to say, hey, I want this and this on a bigger monitor, and with red, yellow, blue, green, and with all the stuff I care about it, and then we should be able to deliver that view to him. That matters. And if something goes wrong, he should be able to touch the button or touch the screen and be able to drill down to see, oh, this is because of this. But if you are more of a network operator, you probably want to go all the way down to be able to see the network traffic, the log files, and the historical patterns, and the number of the patches and the devices and the mobile. You can go all the way down. So this is involving a lot of the variables and the changes. So the flexibility is important, and to be able to tailor that, or have the user to do that himself, or help the user to do that in a very fast fashion. With the agility I'm talking about here is probably one of the key things to get adoption. And the reality is, analytics, data analytics, and actionable analytics is not that simple. The reality is, it's involving a lot of more things that most people are not used to. They may have seen some charts or Excel spreadsheet, but if you introduce a lot of the new machine learning, advanced analytics, predictive analytics models, and it's going to be confusing to people, I think. So we should start with simple ones. But as they get more mature in the skill set, and I think they can dig into that and tailor to whatever they want to do. And that's why, using PowerPoint as an example, some of us creating very, very powerful and impressive PowerPoint. Some of us just a couple of bullet points, right? That's okay. It works, based on your skills and how much time you have, and what kind of audience you try to invest into. So with that said, let me summarize what I talked today. And it's all about the data. So when we talk about actionable intelligence, then we have to know what our data is and educating ourselves, at least conceptually, what the typical data analytics flow, process flow, really means to us, and to be able to drive, start with the display aggregation of bigger monitor, video wars we have, and to be able to go beyond that and gain insights, and to be able to understand, leveraging the vendor's investment of their visualization, but also invest in yourself and your team, so they can actually do data correlation, transformation, and apply some simple analytics techniques, and you can get a great return investment without actually spending years of effort. And being able to coordinate data, aggregate data, and knowing where the data are, and then combine it together and apply correlation will reduce the false positive significantly, and be able to find out what is normal and what is normal in a multi-dimensional space or multiple factors. That way, we'll be able to pinpoint what's normal at what X and Y, Z condition, right? And once you understand that part, we can apply automation and be able to automating a lot of steps from the visualization layer, from the display layer, from the data gathering, from the data preparation, from the reports generation, distribution can be all automated significantly. And some of the advanced analytics is very exciting. And there's a lot of investment going into that, predictive analytics, machine learning, deep learning, AI, and especially for the pattern recognition type of use cases. It's really, really useful. And if you are getting that kind of maturity, I think it's worthwhile to invest into that. And if you have leveraging some of the industry, either open source tools or some third-party analytics can plug into your current processes. And I think this will be very helpful as your maturity grow, right? And the final point I was making was make the user to be the center, because we are serving the user community, the operators, they need to make faster decisions, and the senior leaders should want to see the information quick, and the analysts should be able to support that. So the tool we adopt and the technology we adopt needs to be flexible and agile and nimble, so they can actually mesh and like self-service, and they be able to plug and play and then using Lego type of style to mixing stuff together very quickly. Ideally, using software instead of hardware because it's much more agile to do that. And then once you apply this, the actionable intelligence concept will manifest because they know what they're looking for, and what is actionable means to the user. One may be different than user B. If the cost of doing empowerment is more, and then we're going to give the user more power to do what they're looking for, and the action will be more meaningful. The analytics is also more meaningful. So that's basically the 7 bullet points and the best practices I went through over the last 30 minutes or so. So I have one more slide here, just a little bit about the. So Robert and Kevin listed here. We have a white paper with a lot more information than I just talk about here. And if you're interested, feel free to reach out to us. And Robert mentioned his email address at the beginning and the phone number. So listed here. If you have do a screen card or you maybe write down the phone number. And we're very much excited to talk to you more about the details. I understand, today it's a relatively high level at this point in time, and there's a lot more details we can talk. So with that said, Robert, I hand it over back to you.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Just want to make sure we had some audio problems earlier. So, great job. I appreciate you participating today, and apologize about the audio earlier on. But for everybody on the call, I'd like to, Kevin, I've got a couple of questions that have come in. I want to get to those real quick. But, if I were to summarize what you've presented today and what I know about actionable intelligence being in the mission critical world is, I kind of see actionable intelligence as 2 things. One, and first and foremost, I would think that it is, what do I need to do to drive predictive behavior? Because to me, when I can understand and predict behavior based on sets of criteria and analytics and correlation that I do, it allows me to stay ahead of a problem. And first and foremost, I think that in the command center, in the operations center, or your law enforcement center, emergency operations center, all of these places that are mission critical, first and foremost, they want to be ahead of the curve rather than just responding to things. But, we can't always be ahead of things, right? We are limited with technology, even though technology is quite robust today. And the second part of actionable intelligence would be where you can more immediately have access to key data that allows you to respond faster when something happens that could not be predicted. And so those 2 things to me is what makes up actionable intelligence. Now, if I drill down a little bit more, correct me if I'm wrong, because I just want to make sure that everybody understands kind of how actionable intelligence is split up. So you have analytics, right? So analytics is the forensics and the understanding of the data that you have, whatever it is, wherever it is, in whatever format it's in. And then there's correlation, which allows you to correlate, or in simpler terms, connect the dots, if you will, between disparate types of information, no matter what it is, where it is, or what format it's in. Because once you have analyzed it, done the forensics, and you can correlate it and connect the dots, that's when you can take action on it. Well, in today's world, whether that's a manual action in real time because you've got an active shooter at a school, or whether you have a bank robbery taking place, or whether it's a car accident down the street in your traffic management center, that this is all stuff you can take real-time action on immediately. But when it comes to predictive behaviors, that's where the machine learning, I think, comes in, and a little bit of artificial intelligence and things like that. And I'd like for you, if you could, to expand a little bit on, machine learning and what that really means to staying ahead of problems and having, so in other words, to me, when you talked about machine learning, it was really talking more about how do I look or have a mechanism in place to look for patterns, trends, and breaches in a threshold that I've set that allows me to, ahead of something really catastrophic happening, I know what